Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more Legacy action. Today it's our midweek meta deck slot, so I am playing a deck that I believe is the best deck in Legacy right now according to the numbers. So let's pull up those numbers and see what we're talking about. This is the data for all the weeks since the bans, and this is online challenge level events, and if we scroll down to Turbo Reanimator here, it's only 2% of the meta, but it's making up 4.7% of all the top 8 decks. And that is giving it a rate of 2.34 on overrep, which is enormous. This means it's performing way, way above where it should be if it was performing like fairly based on the number of people. If we look through all the other numbers, no one else has a number that good until you get down to the decks that are basically not really played at all, so the numbers get really skewed. And that's really impressive. But not only that, if we look at the number of event wins, it's actually won 4 events, which is more than any other deck. Even the decks that are being played at a huge rate, like Is It Delver, which is played at 11% right now, only 3 wins. So this is why you can argue that Turbo Reanimator is the best deck in Legacy right now. And I would also like a nice apology from everyone who told me that banning Entomb would kill Turbo Reanimator decks, because I said it wouldn't, and I think I've been vindicated quite nicely here. So the list we're playing today comes from Goblin King, who won a Legacy Challenge this week. And this list is pretty much what you'd expect, really. We've got a bunch of reanimation effects in the form of Reanimate, Animate Dead, and Shadow Grave. We have ways of putting creatures into the graveyard using Faithless Looting, using Putrid Imp, the classic Putrid Imp. We also have the Unmask, which can target ourselves, and Cabal Therapy, which can target ourselves. No Thoughtseize in the main is kind of interesting, which is why I wanted to play this list. It's a little bit different to some of the stuff we've seen before. The monsters, we got 4 Atraxa, 4 Archon, and 1 Griselbrand. We've got a little bit of fast mana in the form of Lotus Petal and Dark Ritual to try and power this all out. And we've got a Raucous Theater and an Undercity Sewers ×2 buried in our lands for a little bit of surveil action, which sometimes just becomes an Entomb. That's pretty much it. We play a big monster, our opponent loses because we're playing it super early, we strip their hand apart, very nice. I like the maxing out of the Unmask here. You sometimes see people skimp a little on these and go up and play the Thoughtseizers. But on the topic of Thoughtseize, that's what's in our sideboard. We have 3 Thoughtseize, 4 Dauthi Voidwalker, and 2 Bowmasters. So we can kind of juke into a fair plan, which is really interesting. And then we also have these show and tells, which allow us to ignore the graveyard. So what we can do is we can board out like the reanimation-y type stuff, board in a bunch of fair stuff and the show and tells, and play like a fair game where we then show and tell and our opponent has a horrible time. The other things we have access to is 1 Null Rod for some of these decks where they're going to have a whole bunch of artifacts like Storm and stuff where we can try and shut them down. And then Meltdown, which can also do similar things and blow up Patchwork, Automatons, and all that sort of jazz. So that's the list we're playing today. Congratulations to Goblin King for winning the challenge, and I'm excited to make some massive monsters come into play and ruin our opponent's day. Let's get stuck in. If you've been watching my content and thinking, I'd like to play some Legacy too, then check out 3for1 Trading, one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. They have weekly offers and upload new cards every Wednesday. And it's not just Legacy stuff they sell. They have a beautiful selection of vintage and old school cards too. Support from sponsors like 3for1 Trading make it possible for me to put out videos and help keep Legacy alive, so why not give them some love? Click their link in the description below and use my code COW3 to enjoy free worldwide shipping on your first order over €500. Okay, we're into our first game. We don't have anything going on, so we're going to mulligan this. We don't have anything going on here either, so this is going to be a mulligan to 5 at least. We're on the play though, so we can just maybe get our opponent. On 5... do we keep this one? I think we do end up just keeping this one on 5. Probably put back... I don't want to get Thoughtseize and lose a reanimation effect, so I'm going to get rid of a Lotus Petal here. We're kind of hoping the top of our deck is kind to us. We could mulligan to 4. Maybe you're supposed to do that here, but I don't mind having an additional couple of cards to see here off of this Faithless Looting. Well, well, well. We have swung and miss here. Guess we'll put these down and keep the permanent mana source. We are in a lot of trouble right now. Wasteland, not really my favourite thing to see right now. Another Faithless Looting. I guess we don't play lands out into the Wasteland. Our opponent can have more of those. They can have ways of recurring this one. A Dark Ritual from our opponent. Is this going to be a Doomsday? It is a Doomsday. We need to find a red source to cast this Faithless Looting and find a way of getting a creature into the bin and also using a reanimation spell next turn. If we get something like an Archon of Cruelty, that might be enough here. It will be enough, right? Because we hit them for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we just find an Archon of Cruelty, put it in the bin, and the mana to use one of our spells. Let's have a look at our opponent's list. We've seen the Wasteland, so I'm already expecting there is Murktide Regents and Tamios. Any Bowmaster? There is a Bowmaster. Yeah, a pretty stock tempo Doomsday list. It's got to be a good turn for us. Close, but not quite. Alright, I'm going to play out this Underground Sea. I believe they're just going to kill us next turn. Let them go through it. Street Wraith. Looks like our opponent's going to win this turn. Another Street Wraith. I'm going to float some mana to Edge of Autumn. This is just a very easy pile to navigate for our opponent here. Put cards in hands. They might well have had some counter magic. Alright, let's go to the sideboard. Let's try the pivot plan if they're going to see our Graveyard Hate. I can't remember what Graveyard Hate Doomsday plays, actually. They're not particularly high on the old Graveyard Hate, so maybe... I think we want more hand disruption, though. That is definitely a thing I would like to have access to. Because they are a deck that can kill us. Maybe because this plan is just good, like the Bowmasters and the Thoughtseize are both just good here. Maybe we're supposed to pivot off of the graveyard. So they have Tormod's Crypt in there. They can Doomsday for it and then cycle into it and just have a Crypt and jam us up. And we take out the Imps for the Thoughtseizers, because these can kind of do both things. I don't know if we get to fit these in. Let's just try it like this and see where we go from there. They don't have a lot of Graveyard Hate from my cursory look at stock lists at the moment. Now, there's a couple of Dauthi Voidwalker that they can bring in, but they tend to be a little bit slower. I guess we could pivot if we're really worried about the Dauthi Voidwalkers, but we're supposed to be doing our thing on turn 1. Okay. So we would go land, Dark Ritual, that's 3 mana. We can Thoughtseize, well, we can unmask them, Cabal Therapy ourselves, and then Reanimate Atraxa. That seems like a very good thing to do on turn 1. Turn 1 Atraxa with protection. I will take that. I think we just get a swamp here. This would be a pretty... actually, no, we probably want to unmask them first, don't we? Before we try and resolve our Dark Ritual. How much counter magic have you got over there, opponent? They have a Force of Will. I will take the Force of Will. We will cast Dark Ritual. I will Cabal Therapy myself. Name Atraxa. I just cycle the Street Wraith in the hopes they find another Force effect. Atraxa, Grand Unifier. Goes to the graveyard. I will now reanimate the Atraxa. We will get a bunch of cards in our hand. There is our artifact. No enchantment today. What creature do we want? Probably an Archon of Cruelty. And I will take an Unmask over Reanimate is probably fine here. We'll take the Raucous Theater. Okay, I think I'm going to unmask my opponent here. Try and take this Brainstorm out of their hand. We'll take the Brainstorm. That's the easiest way they can fix their hand up. And I'll play this one out so they can't Thoughtseize it away from us, because we know they have a Thoughtseize. We've put them in a bit of a bind, but that's what our deck does. Slam down something really big with protection turn 1 and ride it to victory over the course of a couple of turns. Past the turn piles are going to be pretty awkward after we hit them once, because they'll be dead, so they won't be able to do that at all. So they're going to have to string together a pile that also wins them the game on the turn they make the pile. Flooded Strand. I assume we're going to see a Consider here, but we could see the Dark Ritual into Doomsday if that's what they drew. Which makes things pretty interesting here. Alright, I think things are getting interesting. It is a Doomsday off the top. So we could have taken the Dark Ritual to stop this exact line, but the Brainstorm gives them the ability to get into their deck. So if they find like a Lotus Petal, they could have done this off of a Brainstorm as well. I think it was correct to take the Brainstorm, but we could lose to this. Okay, our opponent's finished making their pile. Do we see anything differently here? Can't see any Graveyard Hate immediately. Okay. There's a past the turn pile. We know there's a Street Wraith because we saw it highlighted when they were doing their pile. Attack with this. This is going to shut off the Street Wraith. So maybe the Street Wraith isn't in their pile. And Undercity Sewers, we don't need that one. It's all very face up for our opponent here. If they can get through this turn, they win the game. If I can string it together now. Consider, oh, a Brainstorm. Yeah, that's going to get them through their pile pretty easily. I don't know if we saw an LED in here. So they probably just have a nice clean LED pile because they already have some other cantrips going on. I think our opponent's got us. We are just F6, hands off the wheel. And hands our diamond. So this could have been avoided if we took the Dark Ritual. I think the majority of the time, taking the Brainstorm there when your opponent's got mystery cards on top of their deck is going to be better. Maybe we just have to play around them not casting Doomsday the next turn. Maybe that's all we need to do. So here comes that Oracle, empty deck, empty hand. And our opponent wins the game and the match. So we definitely could have mulliganed to 4. I'm not sure I would like to go into 4. I think we just take the chances and run the hit, but it didn't really work for us. But we had the turn 1 Atraxa with double hand disruption, and then our opponent still beat us. So good going for the Doomsday player. Let's go to round 2. We're on the play for round 2. We don't have a monster, so we're going to have to mulligan this one. Let's see what we do here. We need another land for this hand to come together. That is the awkward part of this one. Do I like my chance of drawing a land on our second turn, or should we just go a little bit deeper? We do get to take a bite out of our opponent's hand here, although one of these cards has got to go back. Maybe we're just going to go for the turn 1 monster and mulligan to 5 here. This is 2 lands, monster, Cabal Therapy for us, and a reanimation effect. This is a turn 2 big monster. I think we just have to live with that. We do expose ourselves to our opponent's abilities, potentially, because they might be able to reanimate our guy. They are going pretty deep as well. Black, Cabal Therapy ourselves. Get Atraxa in so we have the mana to cast it next turn. Our opponent knows exactly what's up at this point. They've seen our hand. They can probably surmise our deck to within like 3 or 4 cards, I would imagine. Mire, it's Oopsal spells, but they're playing this tapped, which means we get to get our Atraxa off, which is a big deal. Unmask is an excellent draw. It means any black card is disruption. There are situations where we have to sacrifice our Atraxa to the Cabal Therapy here, which I'm not going to be a fan of. Okay, enchantment, artifact. Those are the easy ones. Land, they're both the same. I'll just take whatever. Do I want a Dark Ritual? So we take a creature, could be Putrid Imp. We're not reanimating anything from this pile, so we may as well take the Imp. Helps in the future, potentially. And I'd like some more hand disruption, please. And we also get the Dark Ritual. So we kind of get a big load of cards in hand. I think step 1 is ping this at our opponent's face here. Let's see what you're working with. Balustrade Spy, and mana. So we take out... I guess it's the Cabal Ritual. I suppose it's probably the Feller Profane. And then we can play this Lotus Petal out, and we can Cabal Therapy them, naming Balustrade Spy. So we should just have a Cabal Ritual in hand. I'm not going to lose my Atraxa to do that. I can take it out next turn using my Putrid Imp if I wish. I can also Balustrade Spy to hit our own graveyard. Or I could do it to hit them, but then they can just use the cycle in thing, and that's not going to go very well for us. If they didn't have this Lotus Petal, that would be a line that could just win the game immediately. But we're going to have to beat them down, I think. We'll play this so we have a Surveil land available. Let's get our Putrid Imp in. Bash for 6. We will interact with them in every way we can. Let's take this Cabal Ritual. Oh, they drew another one. Unlucky opponent. Our opponent is the Usual Spells player, so we are the good guy, even though we're doing turn 1 Atraxa or turn 2 Atraxa type stuff. Bog at Bog. So now we're going to go and get a Surveil land. I don't want them to know about our Show and Tell, so I'm going to get the red Surveil land here. The blue one would be a bit of a giveaway, that we have a Show and Tell pivot, which we probably want against Usual Spells, because they're going to board in Graveyard Hit, perhaps. Okay, well, this can go into the Graveyard. That's not a bad one. Nice little 0 mana Entomb there. Let's get the beats in. Let's bring back Archon of Cruelty. Because if we mill them with their own Balustrade Spy, what happens is they use this Lotus Petal for green mana to Memory's Journey back in the things to then win the game. Alright. We managed to get game 1. I think we want our Disruption and our Dauthi Voidwalkers. So in come the Dauthi Voidwalkers, in come the Thoughts. I'm not sure how much Graveyard Hate they're going to have, so we can think about this. I think we want the Null Rod here. It just shuts down some of their mana and their pivot plan into Charbelcher. I think we're probably getting rid of Preacher. We could just try and do like a much bigger pivot here. So we could do something along these sort of lines. And if we want to get these Show and Tells in as well, we kind of like all of our hand disruption as a thing. So we need all of this stuff. And we want the Cabal Therapy still as well. So none of this is coming out, which means we're toying with these things if we want them. I don't really know if we want to do that. Maybe it's just this and we don't bring in the Null Rod. Oh, I've just mixed these two piles together. That wasn't very smart, was it? So we could just board in this and just be a mono black Reanimator deck. Don't mind that. Do I want this Null Rod? It might be able to do stuff, but it also might do nothing because they have a bunch of rituals and stuff. Okay, I think that's what we're going to go for. If we get blown out by a Charbelcher, so be it. This is Disruption, but if our opponent combos us on turn 1, we just die. We don't have our own plan. Do I think 2 pieces of hand Disruption is enough to win this game? Probably. It's going to be enough to get us where we need to be. I'll take it, especially since we can fire them both off on turn 1. I'm going to take this one. Because if they've got a defensive hand with like turn 1 Thoughtseize, then it doesn't beat us. Because we get to then fire back in. But if they just turn 1 combo us, we have nothing here. Mana into Ritual, into Undercity Informer. Alright, they're passing. Do we have any recourse here? I guess I'm just going to Thoughtseize them here. It doesn't matter because they're just going to flip the whole deck over next turn. But we're going to see how they've sideboarded. I'll take your Reanimate. Let's just see how they've sideboarded, and then they kill us. And then it's us being on the play, which is a huge deal. Let's just see what their sideboard strategy is here. And if there's any graveyard hate we need to play around or not. Pop their graveyard out and have a little look. So they've got the Leyline of Sanctity, and that's going to be the way that they're defending themselves against hand disruption. And they're probably going to mull very aggressively to that. That's good to know about. Nothing else that we need to really concern ourselves with. Let's just scoop this one up. Our opponent has it. So we need to beat their Leyline of Sanctity. The Dauthi Voidwalker is obviously a very good way of doing that. I still think we want the hand disruption. It's just enablers anyway. I think we're just going to submit. Because they don't always have the Leyline. They're probably mulligan to it relatively aggressively, but they're not going to be throwing away a turn 1 kill. Or like a disruption with the kill. What does this hand do? We target them with our hand disruption if that works, but it might not do work. So I think we need to mulligan. Knowing about the ley lines is kind of a big deal. We could maybe kill our opponent turn 1 if we make them pitch a Balustrade Spy. I don't like this. Okay, we get turn 1 Dauthi Voidwalker, and we didn't see anything that our opponent has that beats that. So I'm going to keep this one. So we have land, Petal, Dauthi. 2 cards got to go back. One of them is an Animate Dead. This little puzzle is harder. I think the Dauthi Voidwalker can go all the way, so I'm just going to get rid of the Atraxa. Well, they didn't even start with it. So if we find another black spell, we might be able to just reanimate their guy. We know they don't have... We're just playing mono back at this point, aren't we? So we don't need to get anything other than a swamp here. So we might be able to reanimate their guy and mill them into the void with Dauthi Voidwalker. That could be our plan. I guess it's not going to work once we have the Dauthi Voidwalker in, is it? Because if we reanimate something, it has to be in the graveyard and it's just going to go straight to exile because we have the Dauthi Voidwalker. We would have need to have unmasked first and then drawn what we needed. We could have unmasked here as well. Maybe that would have been a smart thing to do. If our opponent doesn't play out a mana source... Yeah, they play out a mana source, so we can't just mill them by sacking this. But let's see what we find. I guess we're going to unmask our opponent first. I'm going to bin off... The Dark Ritual can give us additional Dauthi Voidwalkers. So I think we're probably better off just keeping the Ritual around. So their plan is probably just to play guys. That's not going to be a great plan. If we take out a Boggart Trawler, that's not too bad. It's an interesting line here. We can't really disrupt their combo, so I think we disrupt the mana. So I'm going to take out one of their Trawlers. And then just send in with the Dauthi Voidwalker. And this is our plan. Dauthi Voidwalker doesn't let you cast stuff at instant speed. It makes you have to cast it at whatever timing the card would normally be cast at. So playing the Trawler here. Alright, they're going to Thoughtseize us. No, just playing a Jack-o'-lantern. This will cantrip for them. But they are in some trouble. Just get in with the Dauthi. And then try and surveil our way towards victory here. They might just play some guys out, but we have the quicker clock here. And by taking that land, it meant that they couldn't just go guy into guy if the things panned out as well. Alright, so we're going to see the Undercity Informant. This is just going to be attacking us. But 2 damage a turn versus 3 damage. I like those odds for us. Let's surveil. Just go and grab ourselves an Undercity Sewers is fine. Make our opponent think about blue spells now. I don't need this Lotus Petal. An Unmask. Yeah, I'll fire an Unmask off. I'll just take the other guy that can be a threat. continue to smash our opponent down. We could sack the Dauthi Voidwalker, get back their Balustrade Spy, mill their whole deck, and the problem is they can then sacrifice this, and then they have green mana. So we need this to be sacrificed first before that is a kill. They also have Summoner's Pact, which can go and get an Elvish Spirit Guide, but it has to get it before their whole deck's milled. I think they're just going to be exchanging attacks here, and then our opponent will slowly bleed out to this Voidwalker. I don't recall anything they had in their deck that can actually beat this. An Archon of Cruelty. I guess I could Thoughtseize and then reanimate my Archon of Cruelty. That works for them. But they have one Reanimate and maybe some Lively Dirge. I can't remember if Lively Dirge hits any graveyard though. It's not a card I'm overly familiar with. We could do weird lines of losing our Dauthi Voidwalker to get another guy and then Animate Deading our Dauthi Voidwalker. But none of this really matters. Jack-o'-lantern. So they remove a card from our graveyard to draw a card. Now the Jack-o'-lantern is gone, we might just be able to mill our opponent out next turn and win one turn quicker. But we do open ourselves up to a second Jack-o'-lantern, maybe getting us. Some people playing Oops have some really weird sideboarding lines. Sometimes they have like additional Thassa's Oracles and all sorts. So we need to make a decision. If I have a piece of hand disruption this turn, maybe that ends up being quite good. Let's see, are we gonna... So we could try and risk it all and get back their Balustrade Spy. Mill them out. If they don't have a second Jack-o'-lantern, then they just die in their upkeep. Or they die in their draw step. We can do this and then reanimate our Dauthi Voidwalker. All their cards will already be in the graveyard. They'll get back a bunch of little guys. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it is worth it. If they have a second Jack-o'-lantern and they get us, that's going to be a problem. But maybe they don't. I haven't seen many lists with second Jack-o'-lanterns. But it's certainly possible. And the only way they beat us now is probably reanimating this, so we lose our guard and they just get to pop off. But they don't have enough mana to... Actually, they do, because they can use this to get an Elvish Spirit Guide to pop their Undercity Informer. Alright, we win the match. Okay, on to round number 3. We are on the play. Our hand looks terrible. Let's mulligan. No way of getting a creature into the graveyard. I don't think we get to keep these. Let's go again. No way of getting a creature into the graveyard unless we get lucky and spike one. Are we going to 4? Gets more difficult on 4, but I think we have to keep going. Okay, I'll keep this one. Faithless Looting. Atraxa. Reanimate. 3 cards go away. I guess it's probably Looting, Therapy, Reanimate. That makes sense. This way, if we draw a Lotus Petal off our Faithless Looting... Okay, so we're going to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. So we get to keep 1 card. Okay, we should be okay. As long as they don't wasteland us or reanimate our guy. I'll get rid of Atraxa and Putrid Imp. And then we hope our opponent doesn't play wasteland or reanimate right now. Counter spells will be annoying, but we might be able to power through it. Bog at Bog. Another one of these people. Disgusting stuff. Double Oopsal spells. Like, we are playing like a very fast combo deck ourselves, so we can't complain that much. But losing game 1 here on the play is going to be pretty brutal. They have the mana, so pop this. We'll have a look at their build, see if there's anything interesting. There won't be because it's Oopsal spells. But let's have a look. Anything unusual? Very, very black heavy with none of the green stuff. Okay. Not ideal. Let's go and add in some Dauthi Voidwalkers, please. Let me take out the Putrid Imps. Wouldn't mind some Thoughtseizers here as well. Take out some Faithless Lootings. That's what we did last time. This can be an enabler if we need it to be. I guess that's what we're doing. It worked last time, but our opponent gets to be on the play even if we win game... So if we win game 2, our opponent gets to be on the play for game 3. So they're just going to put us in the dirt because we don't have turn 0 interaction. So we need them to have a turn 2 to even have a chance in game 3. So losing the game 1 on the play is huge here. Nope, this doesn't do what we need it to do. This does what we need it to do. We'll keep this. I'll get rid of the Archon of Cruelty. Right, here comes Dauthi Voidwalker. I hope that really annoys your opponent. Then we can surveil land, try and work our way towards a creature for the Shallow Grave to use on. And then we can just slowly beat our opponent down. Bog at bog, tapped or untapped, opponent untapped. So we're getting Thoughtseize most likely. Or they're just going to play out guys and just start beating. No. Why do they take damage from that? That's very suspicious. Another Atraxa isn't really the one I was hoping for. We're not going to do this now because our opponent does likely have a Reanimate in their deck. So I don't want them to be able to reanimate something we put in the graveyard if we like rip a big monster. Bog at bog. Tap this time. Probably just going to pass and there it is. Don't want my opponent thinking about show and tell. Sure. Let's have a little surveil action. Another Shadow Grave. We don't need that one. We already have one. We need a monster. I will play this land out and I will attack for 3. And we're just going to be in this holding pattern for a little bit. We're probably just going to win this game and then get crushed in game 3. Fel Mire, untapped. Not playing out anything here. That's so weird. I could Thoughtseize myself and get this Shadow Grave going, which I think seems like the correct play. Because this will be lethal damage. Okay, they're going to kill my Dauthi Voidwalker. I'm going to get this Lotus Petal as a thing that we get to cast in response. Thoughtseize myself. Take this Atraxa. Get back the Atraxa, because it's the top card of our graveyard. They could have done this in a way that actually messed us up. Okay, artifact. Creature. Instant. Sorcery. Land. Done. Play this Lotus Petal from exile. Play this Lotus Petal from exile. Get this going. Get Swamp. We can just Shadow Grave for the win instead, right? Shadow Grave, get back to Dauthi Voidwalker. We attack for lethal. Alright, we tied it up, and now we're going to get absolutely mashed up. Do we have any recourse here that we want to try? I think we have. Maximum discard spells, so that if we get a turn, we can do something, I guess. I think we're just going to die here, though. Our opponent's more likely to have Charbelcher if they don't have any of the green stuff, maybe? Or is it the other way around? I can't remember. No, I think they're more likely to have the creature pivot if they're on mono black. Like, this hand is about as good as it's going to get for us, I think. We'll just keep it. We don't get turn 1 Dauthi, which is a shame. But we do get to take 2 pokes of their hand. They didn't start with a ley line, but they did start with 6 cards. Tapped or untapped? Untapped, so it's game over. Fun and interactive magic. Cabal Ritual. I guess there's a chance that if they don't have the mana to pop it right now, then we're not dead. They do have the mana to pop it, and we're just going to get turn 1'd. Alright, out of curiosity, I'm going to have a look at how they've sideboarded, just for some good information to have. Let's have a little looky. No creatures, just all the things you'd expect. Alright, we got oopsed. On to round number 4. This hand doesn't go anywhere. We need to send this one back. We need to find a way of getting our guys into the bin. And this does not do that. This has similar but different problems. Well, it does have one of the same problems, but we at least have more surveil action in this hand, so it would be a better keep than the first one, but we're obviously not keeping this because our deck can do more busted stuff than this. No monster in sight, no Faithless Looting to gamble on. Let's mulligan to 4. Do we get to keep this one, or do we have to mulligan? I think we are going to 3. Okay, this is the best hand we've had so far, believe it or not. So we keep a land, a Putrid Imp, and a monster. But no reanimation. That is annoying. That is very annoying. But we have 12 things that we can reanimate. 12 reanimation spells. Chance of winning this one, not very high. So they've got Graveyard Hate in a couple of turns, is what you're telling me with that as a saga. A Grindstone. Maybe they'll manually grind us and put monsters in the bin for us. Unlikely. Okay. We've got a plan, team. We've got a plan. I will get this. Do you want Badlands? No, I want Swamp in case they have Blood Moons. I don't want to get taken off of black mana. Here is Putrid Imp. It's a classic. Are they on blue painter and they just counterspell this? Maybe. So next turn we have an Atraxa we can at least go for. And it's going to be in the yard until they hate us out with Graveyard Hate. Please play like a mountain. Just let us know you're playing red painter. Ancient Tomb. That doesn't tell us anything. Let's discard the Atraxa. This is going to hopefully give us a reload that maybe gives us the Archon of Cruelty as well. Reanimate the Atraxa. Don't do it to an opponent. Don't have blue spells in your deck. They've got blue spells in their deck. Very rude behaviour. Okay. Putrid Imp comes in. At least we don't take the life for the Reanimate unless it resolves. So there is that going for us. I don't think these Putrid Imp beats are going to get there. But a turn 2 attempt at Atraxa on a Multa 3 shows you how powerful our deck is. What did they pitch that one? A stock up. So at least we got something good, but we don't really care about these sort of exchanges of resources moving forward. We just want to do our thing, and if it works, it should be good enough. But if they stop us, then we lose. Right, out comes the Graveyard Hate, I'm sure. Soulguide Lantern just messed us up. There it is. Goodbye, Atraxa. We had one shot, and it very nearly won us the game. So I'll certainly take that on a Multa 3. So we're getting cracked for 4. This is making Reanimate become less viable as a card. Obviously, it's not very viable with the Soulguide Lantern in play either. Have a little Surveil action. Underground Sea. This does show our opponent we're playing blue. So they're going to know about a Show and Tell Duke. But we need to do something here. Not really sure how we beat this setup though. Mistress Bauble. So we take 10 here and then we're dead on the next turn. I don't know what we can do here apart from have our opponent accidentally pass through and not use our Soulguide Lantern. We'll take another draw just in case something weird happens, but I think this is just going to be the end of the game. Our opponent doesn't have any counter magic available. Oh, actually, that's not true. They could have the what's the metal craft one, and they're about to draw another card as well. So ignore me. They could have any sort of counter spell. All right, we'll scoop it up. Don't really know what sort of Graveyard Hate the painter decks are running these days. Probably just like a bunch of Soulguide Lantern-y style stuff. I think this is a matchup where the Null Rod maybe looks pretty good. Gets to shut off a bunch of things. Maybe we'll try this Show and Tell pivot. And if they've got like a bunch of cantrips, the Dauthi Voidwalker is going to be pretty good here. The Meltdown's good. Let's just do a full 15 and see what that looks like. So we get rid of Faithless Lootings. We don't need those. If we're not trying to reanimate our creatures, we're doing like something like this. We have our Show and Tell monsters. We have our fair plan. We can always pitch these guys anyway. Do we need Lotus Petals? Probably. Part of me is like, wow, how about we just have a little Misers Reanimate in there? But no, I think we're going to try like this. The full 15 pivot and see how it feels. Kind of a weird one. We don't have any monster to go with this Show and Tell. But we can Therapy into Voidwalker is reasonable. We can do it all on one turn if we really wanted. That kind of leaves us needing another mana to resolve this Show and Tell later and needing to find a monster. Is that good enough? Turn 1 Dauthi plus Cabal Therapy. It's not very exciting, but if they're on an Emery line, it's okay. We've got, what, 9 monsters to draw with a Show and Tell? Just a few turns. I don't think this is good, but I'm going to keep it for science. I'm not a Turbo Reanimator player at all. And we're not even doing the reanimation thing on this particular game. So now we know they're blue. We also know that our Underground Sea here will be totally fine. Let's go for Cabal Therapy. Let's have a look what you're working with. I'm going to name Force of Will, because Force of Negation can't hit the Dauthi Voidwalker. If we get this down, it stops Emery. If their hand is like super scary, we can always sacrifice a Dauthi Voidwalker. They did have a Force of Will, so we hit. That's good news. And they've also got Emery as their main engine, so we're going to actually shut them down pretty hard here. Metallic Rebuke will be able to shut down what we're doing later on, but maybe it's just one of those games where Dauthi Voidwalker goes coast to coast. It sometimes happens. This stock up is going to be a lot of cards though. I'm just going to dig them very much to what they want to be doing. So if we can maybe find... I guess we don't have... I guess we've got Bowmasters, right? So we can play Bowmasters and then fire off this Cabal Therapy and take the stock up before it goes, and I'll feel alright about that. But the Emery plan is off for our opponents. The Ferry Macabre looks pretty bad because we've boarded out of our graveyard stuff. Playing Lotus Petal. We use F6 for these turns. We don't have a lot of agency here. They're just going to stock up straight away. I like that as a play from our opponent. Yeah, I think that's correct for our opponent. This does mean they're potentially shields down with counter magic, but they're digging 5, so that's a lot. And maybe we draw... I guess we can't draw our combo for next turn. Although we could get back this Lotus Petal that our opponent has in their exile zone. And then use that to power out a Show and Tell if we draw a big monster here. That's probably our best bet. Isn't what happened. Did I not board out all of these? I guess not. We will attack with Dauthi Voidwalker. I will deploy this Lotus Petal. I think we board out the Reanimates. I think we're supposed to keep in the Reanimates and board out the Animate Deads. But this is an enchantment, so it does get hit off of a Atraxa quite nicely. Maybe we can just go all the way with Dauthi Voidwalker. It's our plan. Okay, so now we can just shove Show and Tells and try and force our opponent's hand. We might even... If we draw enough lands, then we'll just cast one even if we don't have anything to put in sometimes. And then we can mess our opponent up, because they'll definitely counterspell this. We know they have a counterspell, so we can just use it like a 3-mana duress. Okay, this Urza Saga, is that going to be able to clock us quick enough? Probably, and that makes me a little bit fearful. We put them to 3, but then they bash us for 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that is a spell that we can cast. Let's just get this in. Having the Orcish Bowmasters to block with might actually be a huge deal here. We're going to wait for a moment where our opponent doesn't have Metallic Rebuke mana available, if that's the thing that happens. It might not be, though. Using our Lotus Petal in order to do that is a little bit scary as well. We can get their stock up with our Dauthi Voidwalker if that's the way we want to play this game. If we think that's going to be able to push through and just make a big guy. Alright, you take that damage from that Ancient Tomb, though. If you make 2 guys using that Ancient Tomb, and that does take a turn off my clock. Lava Spell Boots from hand. It's a little bit worrying. Okay. 5 cards in hand, we know 3 of them. I think this is the turn where we play this Orcish Bowmasters. If we ping our opponent down to 6, we hit them for 3, 4, they turn off Ancient Tomb. Right, they're pitching the Emery. But that does take a turn off the clock. So even if they don't use their Ancient Tomb, it's still okay. If we draw a land here, we can reanimate this. We didn't draw a land. I could stock up instead and try and go for Show and Tell. How much damage do you take next turn? This is 5. So this is... Sorry, this is a 4-power guy. They're going to make another 4-power guy who are going to be both be 5-power guys. So that's 10 damage. 11 off of the Lava Spell Boots. 12 off of this. They would need to find another artifact. They find one more artifact in their artifact theme deck. So our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. We know 2 of them. If we stock up here, we might be able to put an Archon of Cruelty into play, and that would be better than attacking with the Dauthi Voidwalker here. I think our opponent is going to be able to find 1 artifact in their deck, surely. But if we get the stock up, we would need to find land, Lotus Petal, or land Dark Ritual. Or Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal. Do we just chance our opponent doesn't have another artifact? That seems so sketchy. Alright, we're going to go for the line with the stock up. I thought about this one for a bit. Let's see how we go. We got 5 rips here, deck. Be good to me. Oh, we're in combat. Okay, I need to go to my next main phase first. Do you have another Force of Will? Dark Ritual lands. We did find what we needed. This can get a swamp. We go Dark Ritual. Show and Tell. Put in this Archon of Cruelty. Hopefully. Don't like this pause very much. Oh no, we're in. So this, they're going to put in the Fairy Macabre. So that's what's going to die to the... Yeah, so they're going to die to the trigger with this. That's a really smart play from our opponent. They lose a card from their hand. Probably the Metallic Rebuke. They go to 3 here. We can play this Lotus Petal we've just drawn, which is a real good draw for us, actually. And then we can get back. Is it the unblockable creature, or is it the Orcish Bowmasters just to give us more blocks? Both kind of interesting. Probably the unblockable creature, right? Well, that only blocks for 2, actually, doesn't it? It only attacks for 2, so it's not going to be lethal. So maybe we'll get the Bowmasters here and just have the blocks. Just gets us a ping and 2 chump blockers to make sure we don't lose. Ping them for 1. This shuts off the Ancient Tomb right now as well. If we get the Dauthi Voidwalker, they have a turn of Ancient Tomb being active. I think we've wriggled our way through this one. We could take out this Metallic Rebuke, but we don't care. We can take it out next turn if we need to cast a spell, but we probably don't. I guess they have access to Ether Spell Bomb, but then we can sacrifice this, take this out, possibly have another mana source to then cast this Show and Tell, put back in the Archon of Cruelty. But they're not making another construct here, if they're doing that, right? And they might not be able to cast a Metallic Rebuke, because the Ancient Tomb is going to be... I guess they can tap the Lava Spur Boots as one of their sources. And then we'll see what they play, and then we'll do the maths next time we have action. All right, we managed to get there. Nice. That was a sweet little game. What do we want to do this time? We've seen Fairy Macabres. They probably have to respect the Fairy Macabres. They probably have to respect our graveyard still. They also saw the Animate Dead, so they're definitely going to be respecting it. I think we probably want to ease off on the Animate Deads. And maybe just get some Reanimates in. Something like this. And I will try it like this. We could just keep the Putrid Imp as a creature that attacks. It's not very exciting though as a 1 power guy. Orcish Bowmaster and Dauthi Voidwalker. Alright, we'll keep this. I really like the Bowmasters in this matchup. Nice little baubles. They're probably going to crack it now though to play around Bowmasters. Okay, we need our opponent to not have anything good in their graveyard right now. Bauble, Soul Guide Lantern, Metallic Rebuke, Seed to the Synod. Yeah, that's not too bad. We crack the bauble right now. Okay. I think we hold up here. I don't want to play the Dauthi Voidwalker just yet. I think I'd like to try and maybe get a nice exchange with Bowmasters or possibly Surveil if our opponent doesn't bring back the Soul Guide Lantern. I suspect they bring back the Soul Guide Lantern. But they might just go in for... Yep, so they're getting the Soul Guide Lantern back. Sure. And there it is. So they have to remove one of the cards from their graveyard at this point. Because this has to have a target. Cargo, that can do a lot of damages to us. He's going to get like a cheeky little bauble off or something. No. I think I'm just going to Surveil here. We've got Meltdown and Show and Tell. I think I'm going to play towards the Meltdown first. Dire Ritual. I will keep that. We might be able to just hard cast our big guy. So we do this now, because if they get a bauble back next turn, they'll fire it off and then we can get the Bowmasters in for extra value. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So if we draw another Ritual, we can just hard cast an Archon of Cruelty. So 2 lands or a Dark Ritual gets us there. Chance of them having counterspells very high though. Get back the bauble. We get to take the Emery out next turn because they're going to use this bauble. And then we're just going to jam in the Bowmasters, which might force some counter magic out of our opponent, which is also a reasonable exchange for us. This bauble has gone forever due to Dauthi Voidwalker. Otawara. So with this trigger on the stack, I'm going to cast an Orcish Bowmasters. If they have Metallic Rebuke, this means they don't get an Urza Saga token this turn, which is a big deal. But it might just be... Emery's not that good anyway, because they've got this Dauthi Voidwalker to be dealing with. I think that's some tight play from our opponent there. It's very easy to tunnel into that being an important thing to interact with when actually is it when we have a Dauthi Voidwalker down. Okay, 1 more mana source is all we need. I will attack with my Dauthi Voidwalker here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1 more mana and we can try for an Archon of Cruelty. We also have a Null Rod, which could do some good things by shutting off this Soul Guide Lanterns. That's a nice draw. The Meltdown deals with it as well. Meltdown is one of our best draws right now, which is often the case when you're playing against these sort of artifact decks. That's a construct. We're going to see land, Lava Spur Boots. Our opponent's got a full grip, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have more mana in their hand. Shadow Spear. Do you have an Ancient Tomb to equip this right now? I hope not. Soporific Springs. Untapped. I guess they're figuring they're just going to be able to gain all the life back in a bit anyway. Don't think we block this turn. We block next turn because they're going to be bigger next turn. One of them will have trample, but the other one won't. We just have to live with that. Or die with that is more likely the case. But maybe our opponent doesn't have counter. They're very clearly holding up Metallic Rebuke here. That's what they're telling us. That is the story that is being told to us. Do I have a way of playing around this? No. We just have to go all in if we want to do that. Are they selling us a story of Metallic Rebuke? Or do they just actually have it? Interesting. Let's play out this Lotus Petal. Let's go for a Dark Ritual. Let's go for another Dark Ritual. 5, 6, 7, 8. I have counted correctly. I think our opponent is just going to rebuke this. A secret hidden third mode of getting Archon of Cruelty into play of just casting it. Maybe they tap the construct instead of the Soulguide Lantern. I will not pay 3, unfortunately. So now we have a counterspell to defend against our opponent having interaction if we draw a show and tell. We can just get this Atraxa in. We can force them to pop the Soulguide Lantern by casting Animate Dead, which will shrink their constructs, which isn't like the most helpful thing for us, but I'll take it. Thoughtcast. Okay, this is pretty good. Let's put some damage onto one of these guys. Has a Saga. A Lotus Petal. So this is 6, so it will die in combat to my 4/4. Unless they put the Shadow Spirit, then we can put both creatures underneath it. And trade this off. Is that what I want to do? Craft Digger's Cage. Okay. So this is now big enough to survive, which is less than ideal. And we get a blocks. I guess we block here and we're taking 8. Opponent's got 4 cards in hand. They are holding up Metallic Rebuke as well. Do we get to play around that? I don't know. Like, we need to draw the right stuff. So we're very much dead here. So we're going to just draw a couple of cards, I think. Draw 2 cards, see if we can find a way through this. Doesn't look like we're finding a way through it. This will stop our Animate Dead. Everything else here is bad. Yep, our opponent just has us on that one. GG's. We did not manage to get through that one. I think the pivot was sensible here. It didn't quite pan out for us. It did in game 2. So we are currently 1 and 3. But we've been splitting a lot of games. So let's go to the fun round and see if we can put 2-3 on the board. This is a turn 1 Atraxa. We keep those. If we draw... I don't know if we can... I guess if we draw... Trying to work out how we can... I guess Lotus Petal doesn't do it either. I don't know. Maybe there's a way that we can interact with our opponent. Are we just sending it, or are we going to have a little stab at our opponent's hand? We could just unmask first if we draw any black card and go from there. Animate Dead. Okay, I'm going to unmask our opponent's pitching Animate Dead, I think. Katara, Waterbending Master, and some other nonsense. Okay. This could be the mono blue aggro deck. The mono blue tempo deck that's been hanging around. Okay, let's just go and get this card into our graveyard right now. I could take out both of their Kataras, but I think we're better off just putting an Atraxa into play. So next turn, we can reanimate this. So they're not mono blue, sorry, they got the red source. My brain sort of blanked on that for a second. I don't think they can... Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they get to play Katara here. They have to brainstorm. And then we can just keep sending reanimation effects, I guess. If we draw Putrid Imp, we could maybe play that out first to have our Cabal Therapy ready to go. No fetch land means that they're stuck with the cards on top. Let's get Undercity Sewers going. I'm going to play around Days this turn. Atraxa, you can go in the bin. It's where you belong. Here's our Lotus Petal. We need to send this. We got a bunch more reanimation effects in our deck. Force of Will pitching one of their Kataras. Sure. But we're getting these out now rather than when our opponent has a Katara in play and this can become card advantage and card looting. Because if this is just like a guy that doesn't do very much, then we're fine. I'm going to play this Verdant Catacombs with the intention of getting a Surveil land off of it. A Wasteland. You got it, opponent. Don't really know what this deck has. Sideboard hate for us. So we're just going to have to see on that one. Let's go and get our Raucous Theater. Faithless Looting. I will keep that on. Will I keep it on top? If we put it into graveyard, we can just flash it back. And that's pretty good too. Yeah, I'll do that. Then we don't have card disadvantage while we're doing it. Goodbye red source, but we have more red sources where that came from. I like this one. Let's cast Faithless Looting. I will pay for this, I think. You got another Days? Nice brainstorm earlier, opponent. I'll give you that. Our opponent's got fetch down. They've cracked it. They've got another volcanic. So it might be a lot more heavily into red than I thought. We haven't seen any red cards yet. I assume there's a lightning bolt in there. Right, so now they've got experience counters. They're actually netting cards off of this. Right, I'm going to surveil. This can surveil another Faithless Looting. I will leave this Reanimate on top. Our opponent is not really clocking us for huge amounts. The times when Katara looks good to me is when your opponent doesn't play to the board very much. So a deck like ours, where if we play into the board, we're winning the game. It means that this can kind of just do its thing and actually accrue advantage. But in my other experiences, if your opponent has creatures in their deck, this pretty much can't attack. And that feels a bit awkward. Okay, they're pondering. They kept the ponder. Don't like that for us very much. Now they're going to be discarding some cards, and now they're just going to be going big with this Katara. Let's reanimate an Atraxa. It's not going to resolve, but it gets worse for us every turn because they're drawing additional cards now. A Brainstorm. Okay. They don't have an immediate answer. That's what that suggests to me. Or they already have the answer and they just want to make sure they're using their best blue card to picture their force. And pay for your soft permission. Just let us have the Reanimate. They did not let us have the Reanimate. Now this Katara is going to draw them a million cards. This can, I guess, thin our deck out, which is probably better. Although we could have kept it in hand for Faithless Looting. I think that was a mistake to play it out. I thought of that as soon as I played it. Yeah, we're just going to get chipped down by this very mediocre creature that then they're going to play something like a Murktide and kill us very quickly. They must have found a Murktide by now, and if they don't have Murktides in the deck, I don't know what's going on. Right, this looks like a Murktide. They're taking time to pay the to pay the delve cost on it. Yep, there is a Murktide. I get our marginal thing, I guess. But now if we draw Faithless Looting, that's going to feel real bad. An Unmask. If we draw exactly Animate, we need to draw Animate Dead anyway, so we don't get to cast both our spells next turn. So we need to just do this now. Also, don't mind getting a little peek at our opponent's deck. Spell Stare, Stifle. Our only out is Animate Dead, and they have multiple answers to it. So I guess we scoot that up. The Brazen Borrower, the Stifle, and the Spell Snare all answer Animate Dead very specifically. Alright. What do I want to do here? I think the Bowmasters looks interesting here. Maybe we're just going to do a pivot of 13 cards. How are we going to work around this one? Maybe the Imps go. The Faithless Looting looks less exciting. We've been off some of our reanimation stuff. So I prefer Animate Dead to Shallow Grave. They have Stifle, so I'm kind of more into the Shallow Grave, as weird as that may sound. It'd be nice to get a Griselbrand and play one time. He's a good lad. Alright, we'll try it like this. What does this hand do? We can turn 1 Dauthi. Or we can set up for turn 2 Archon of Cruelty. A Round of Days. Yeah, okay. I don't mind turn 1 Archon of Cruelty, a Round of Days. We have the Show and Tells in, so I am going to surrender the Badlands. Let's target ourselves, get this Archon of Cruelty into our bin. Alright. They are force of willing us pitching a Delver. Okay, things are going to get a little bit tricky for us. We don't have many ways of putting our guy into the bin because we boarded some of them out for the Show and Tell plan. But we did get through a counter spell, which is important. An Unmask. They didn't shuffle off that ponder. I think we're going to take this a little bit slower. We're going to try and make them fight over our other spells. I think we get a swamp off of this. I don't want to get my only untapped blue source and just have it out there for the wasteland. If we draw a black card next turn, we can unmask our opponent and then we can Cabal Therapy ourselves using this Dauthi Voidwalker and then just get the Shallow Grave on the Archon of Cruelty. Now, how good is this Archon of Cruelty going to be? Just as a one-hit? Uncertain, but we'll find out. They have Katara Waterbending Master. Do we draw a black card? We did draw a black card. Let's unmask our opponent, see what they're working with. Daze, Dismember, Spell Snare. So we take the Daze this turn, and then we can just get our guy in, and that looks pretty good. So we get the Daze in. The Daze is gone. So now we Cabal Therapy ourselves, pitching this Dauthi Voidwalker. We name Archon of Cruelty. Now this isn't a recurring damage source, which is part of the problem. Because it's only going to be Shallow Graved, which also exiles it. So the other reanimation spells won't be as good. But it will give us a nice big swing into our opponent. We're going to remove their thing that they're hoping to be a card of Arch Engine. We're going to draw 2 cards. I think this is a worthwhile exchange. So they got rid of the Polluted Delta. They're probably going to get rid of Dismember here. Yep. And we drew an Atraxa Grand Unifier. So we do have a nice option available if we can draw the Show and Tell. We did board in Show and Tell, didn't we? We did. Okay, good. I'm at least playing to an out that's actually in the deck. That's always good. A Thoughtseize. We don't need to Thoughtseize yet. We need Thoughtseize on the turn we want to try and combo off. Does get a bit annoying if we're trying to Show and Tell, but our opponent can sculpt their hand full of counter spells and then we attack it instead of just going, we'll just see what happens. You know? A Wasteland. Yep, that is annoying, but not the end of the world. An Atraxa Grand Unifier, not the best. So we might be firing off a Thoughtseize soon. Another Unmask. We've got so many of these effects. I think I'm okay to Thoughtseize now. A Daze would be irritating here. They have a Spell Snare, which is interesting. They have a Daze. I don't like the Daze very much, as weird as that is. Spell Snare, we just don't play any 2-drops for a bit, and we'll be okay. Alright, we're just playing some Draw Go now. A Reanimate. We need another card to check that the coast is clear. They've got 1 mystery card. If it's Force, we're going to really be annoyed, though. I think we're just going to try and draw another black card. And that'll be enough. Some guy. Okay. We've nearly navigated our way through this one. Any black card, please. It's a black card. So we get to unmask our opponent here, pitching Dark Ritual. We take the Daze, I guess. Spell Snare doesn't matter here. We unmask ourselves, pitching the Atraxa. We name it. We take the Atraxa, then we reanimate it, and then we're all good. All right, and they just scoop into the Atraxa, getting it into play. That felt pretty good. We didn't show them the Show and Tell either. Okay. I think I like how we sideboarded here. We're just going to go in again. We can just shove Show and Tells down our opponent's throat. That's not a bad way to play the game. Wasteland could be annoying here. Alright, we have 2 blanks in hand, but they can be pitched to unmasks and stuff. An Orcish Bowmaster. I'm very reluctant to get our Surveil land going this early on, because our opponent is a Wasteland deck. We can still play it out though. Do we see Stifle as well? That's something we have to play around. So I think getting this down so we maybe have a window to fetch is useful. Katara Waterbending Master. Not a big lover of this one for us. Let's go. I think we get an Undercity Sewers here. We want the Surveil. I do like lands, actually. I'll take it. Then I'll play this land, and I'll play an Orcish Bowmaster on our opponent's turn so they can't get any value off of this Katara. Just won't be drawing any cards. But they might ponder or something in the second main phase. We might be able to just get them. And if we force them to spend anything on their turn, it's stuff they don't have for our turn. Right, this Orcish Bowmasters comes down. How obvious was this to our opponent? Were they sandbagging the Brainstorm? Force of Will, pitching Spell Pierce. Okay. Let's go and get an Underground Sea here. Just go for this. Boom. Spell Pierce. They had another one. And a Brainstorm from our opponent as well. So now the counter's going to be gaining them a bunch of cards on their Katara Waterbending Master. We can't leverage these 2 cards in our hand. We've brought out a bunch of Reanimate stuff because our opponent's board in hate. We unfortunately kept a hand that had a bunch in. If we draw an Unmask, I think we're still likely to win the game. We maybe even put Archon of Cruelty in before the Atraxa. We'll see. Unable to Scream. That's a spooky one. Alright, so now they draw 2 cards and discard a card. This is why I wanted Bowmasters in this matchup. Seems like it's going to be good. Obviously, they got a bunch of cantrips as well. Unmask. It's one of the ones we wanted. Force of Will. I think I would like to jam this now and try and shut off our opponent's card draw engine by getting an Archon of Cruelty into play. If you just got another counterspell, then fair enough, opponent. It's a Pyroblast. Yep, they saw us coming with our Show and Tells. Now the Katara is going to draw them a billion cards, and we're just going to be in the dirt. Are they just splashing for Pyroblasts? Like, obviously, if they have Lightning Bolts, we didn't see them in game 1. Doesn't mean they didn't have them and just didn't draw them, and they would have bored them out in this matchup for interaction anyway. Just does seem weird to have all of this red mana and not really showing us any red cards. Right, they're going to take us off the 3 mana so we can't Show and Tell. That is the correct play. These spells don't work. I'll play this one out now, so we don't have to worry about getting spell pierced or something random later on. They're brainstorming, so now Katara's up to 5, so they're going to draw 5 cards and discard a card. So they're drawing 4 additional cards a turn. But if their cards don't do anything and we get a guy in, then we still win. So we do have to keep playing this one out. It just, like, we could be completely dead. We don't know because we haven't seen our opponent's hand. Delver of Secrets, sure. So now I have fodder in case we don't. In case we do get an Archon of Cruelty, they have stuff they can sack that isn't the Katara, so they can still keep their draw engine if that's what they're playing to. If we just had like a Bowmaster that we managed to resolve, it completely like annihilate our opponent's board at this point. But they flip both their guys, they have a daze, so the show and tell isn't going to resolve. And this is what? 7 damage? That's half our life total. So we don't have anything we can. Actually, that's not true. We can draw a Bowmasters here. That can block and maybe do some cool stuff. Murktide Regent. I think we're dead, team. Surgical Extraction on show and tell. I think we just call it a day there. Our opponent has all the cards in the world as well. So that's the end of the match, and that's the end of the league. We unfortunately went 1-4, but we did win a game in 3 of the rounds we lost. So 5-9 in games. Things definitely could have panned out differently for us. The fact that we had double oops or spells, and one time we beat them and one time we got oops, you know, that's just going to happen. It's a bit unfortunate. But let's talk about the deck. I think this deck is very powerful. There are quite a lot of variants of Turbo Reanimator around right now. Some are the green builds, where they're playing like Colossal Gravemaw and then pivoting to Witherbloom combo out of the sideboard. You've got ones like this that are pivoting into show and tell and some fairer creatures. Although something I do wonder, if you're playing a fair creature duke plan, is Baraghoyf just not really where you want to be? Because that card is terrifying. It's like a one card you win the game button unless your opponent answers it. And if they're on counter magic and stuff, then they're not going to be able to answer that. And it also flips over cards into your graveyard. So you might get in a situation where some of your reanimate spells that are still in are going to be viable because that's going to be like your slow enabler. So if your opponent doesn't have the hate, then you can do it that way as well. So I'd be interested in seeing some Baraghoyf action as a fair plan. I don't particularly like Baraghoyf as a card. I think the design is horrible. But it is incredibly powerful, and it is the reason why so many combo decks are able to pivot right now. So I wouldn't mind seeing that here. But this deck is very solid. It didn't look super amazing in my hands today. We mulliganed a lot, and I'm not an expert Reanimator player. I think that Doomsday game where we could have mulled to 4, where we kept the Faithless Looting to try and hit one of our 9 outers of creatures, maybe we're supposed to just mulligan lower, because we had that game later on where we mulliganed to 3 and we got to attempt to turn to Atraxa. So the deck is very powerful. People are sleeping on it, and the numbers don't lie, right? Look at these numbers. The 4 event wins, 12 top 8s, 2.34 overrep rate. That is bananas. So I think this deck is very good, and more people should be playing it. Like, there's only like 2% of the meta on this deck, so it's not particularly well played. Before Blue-Black Reanimator became like the dominant deck in Legacy, Black-Red Reanimator was the most played deck online. It was, you know, like 10, 11% of the meta. So I would imagine this deck is probably going to creep up a little bit. It's certainly more difficult to play now than it was with Entomb. Entomb did hurt this deck, but it's still a very, very powerful deck. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.